The thing for us to do now is to prepare ourselves. The masses of the people are looking for leadership from within and not from without. Keep the fire burning. Ethiopia shall once more rise from the ashes of material ruin to the heights of temporal glory. We see a new Ethiopia, a new Africa, stretching her hands of influence through the world, teaching man the way of life and peace. You follow me down the ages, you will see within 100 years, you are going to have a terrible race problem. Black people should have a country of their own where they should be given the fullest opportunity to develop politically, socially, and industrially. The black people should not be encouraged to remain in white people's countries and expect to be presidents. The Black Star Line is the solution. Those who fight for the uplift of the race is one of life and death. Judge me, and God will judge you. My enemies in America have done much to hold me up to public contempt and ridicule, yet have failed. Judge me by the testimony. I am but an ordinary man with ordinary common sense who can see where the wind blows. By what has been brought here, by your judgment of what is right. Those who have exploited and lived off the ignorance of the masses are concerned with where I was born. I love all mankind. I love Jew, Gentile. I love white. Blood who will be thrown out into the cold. We anticipated it, we saw it, and we warned the people against it. It is not in your power to condemn a soul. I saw before me, even as I do now, a new world of black men, not peons, serfs, dogs, or slaves, but a nation of sturdy men making their impress upon civilization. Redeem Africa and build up a country of our own. Looking forward a century or two, we can see an economic and political death struggle for the survival of different race groups. Redeem Africa and build up a country of our own. You cannot so much blame the people because the bulk of the people do not think. The bulk of the people follow the advice of their leaders. And the people of that race that has no leaders is a race that is doomed. The district attorney will tell you it is Garvey, Garvey, Garvey. The attitude of the employers in this country was to pay the Negro as small a wage as possible, on which he could hardly subsist and hardly live, because he desired to keep the Negro an industrial peon, as an industrial serf, and make it impossible for him to rise in the great industrial economic ladder of life. These slave masters are not so much to be blamed as those who sold us. Now, what was the object and purpose of it? To take back every nickel that he paid him. The civilization of today is gone drunk and crazy with its power. You cannot so much blame the people because the bulk of the people do not think. We will suffer. I can feel. We will suffer the more, and we will die the quicker from the results of the prejudice. That because Jesus was a Nazarene, the outside world should not accept his doctrine. Those who held authority, sway, and dominion sought his liberty by prosecution, sought his life. Let a man lose his confidence in his people and in God, and chaos is ushered in, and anarchy swipes the world, and human society is destroyed. By the blood of the fathers, the children are free. Let no power on earth turn you from this sacred cause of liberty. I prefer to die at this moment rather than not to work for the freedom of Africa. The Christ was sent here for the propagation of a cause that is of saving fallen humanity. Man must have confidence in something and in someone. Without confidence, the world is lost. Mankind has retrograded and the world has gone back. The world is built upon confidence. I cannot save you. You must save yourselves. We live as rational human beings, social human beings, because we have confidence in people and in God, the Creator. Creator. The world has reached the turning point of humanity. And the man who cannot feel now, I am sorry for his dead sense, and that the Negro not get sense to see it. May we not know that we are the true lords and creators of our own fate. It is only the belief and the confidence that we have in God why man is able to understand the social institutions and move and live like rational human beings. Take away the highest ideal, the highest faith and confidence in God, and mankind at large is destroyed. Socially, we are not free. Economically, we are not free. At no time in the history of creation has the black man ever made up his mind to be a slave. At no time in the history of creation has the black man ever made up his mind to be a serf or peon. At no time in the history of creation has the black man ever made up his mind to take back place in the onward march of humanity. Religiously, we are still slaves to the doctrine of an alien race. I am an African citizen, and I am not supposed to interfere in domestic politics. But if the other fellow will not start out before I see the people perish, I will take my chance. Day by day, we are writing a new history. When a man is hungry, he is a respecter of no person. You must prepare for the dark hour. I cannot save you. You must save yourself. The condition is, give us what is belonging to us. I do not care how long he can pray. When that man is hungry, he is a dangerous character. We must either live as free man or die as men fighting for the great and noble principle. If you are too cowardly, you will never get anything. It is better to die demanding what is yours than starve getting nothing. Pay no attention to the man who criticizes unless he is doing something better than what he criticizes. A leadership that counts not for a dark hour is a leadership misplaced. Because in all leadership that leads to liberty, freedom, and human emancipation, there has always been a dark hour. When any black man in his sober senses gets up anywhere and talks that he has lost nothing in Africa, he becomes a huge joke. All students of political history and political science know that at any moment humanity will face its common battleground. We were told it was a war of democracy. It was a war for the liberation of the weaker peoples. We know that no conflict in the future or at the present can successfully be decided except the black man casts his vote. Africa shall develop an aristocracy of its own, but it shall be based upon service and loyalty to race. The old leadership represented us as a race of beggars. The old leadership represented us as wanting only industrial school and a few churches. The old leadership said we were satisfied to shout, "Give me Jesus." We only want a chance. The obstacles were stepping stones to the future greatness of this cause we represent. We will be able to estimate the grander success of a free and redeemed Africa. Our cause is based upon righteousness, and anything that is not righteous we have no respect for. If you want liberty, you yourselves must strike the blow. Yes, on this principle stood Patrick Henry in the Virginia legislature 140 odd years ago that he defied the organized power of the mighty empire. We desire a freedom that will lift us to the common standard of all men. The hour is coming when the oppressed will rise in their might, in their majesty, and throw off the yoke of the ages. We are coming with our woes behind us. God in all ages has been displeased with the arrogance of man. I warn those nations which believe themselves above the law of God, above the commandments of God. He is no respecter of persons. I warn those nations that believe themselves above human justice, that he would not create in his great love a superior race and an inferior one. You cannot ignore the laws of God. You cannot long ignore the commandments of God. This question of prejudice will be the downfall of civilization. For it is the same God who inspired the psalmist to write, princes shall come out of Egypt, and Ethiopia shall stretch forth her hands unto God. Ethiopia shall once more see the day of her glory. The thing for us to do now is to prepare ourselves industrially. Progress is the attraction that moves humanity. I see before me white men, black men, and yellow men working assiduously for the peace of the world, for the bringing together of this thing called human brotherhood. I warn a selfish world of the outcome of their actions towards the oppressed. I warn a selfish world of the outcome of their actions towards the oppressed. To make the wheat and tare grow together till the day of harvest. God we worship and adore has created man in his own image, equal in every respect. Civilization can only last when we have reached the point where we will be our brother's keeper, when we feel it righteous to live and let live. I am appealing to white, black, and yellow, whose hearts, whose souls are touched with the true spirit of humanity, with the true feeling of human brotherhood, to preach the doctrine of human love more. There should be no regard for superiority. God never intended that a man should enslave his fellow, and the price of such a sin or such a violation of heaven's law must be paid. Must be paid. We also want to experiment in government. It is our duty to remedy any wrong that has already been done. We will suffer the more and we will die the quicker from the results of prejudice. We call upon humanity everywhere to listen to the cry. The thoughtful leader realizes well that industrial, economic, and political competition among peoples of different races breeds prejudice. All men should be free. It ends generally in massacres and civil wars to the detriment of the weaker group. What progress is it? It has been built upon sand. If white men are going to continue to exploit yellow men, if white men are going to continue to exploit black and brown men, if yellow men are going to exploit black and brown men, then we can all look forward to is a reign of war. Victory is to be won from within. Reign of war and rumors of war. It is now our duty to socially and morally study ourselves. The question of the age is that of political freedom, political liberty, and political emancipation for all people. The time has come now when we as free men can do for ourselves. And when we start out to do for ourselves, this prejudice against us will cease. Every student of economics knows that the race can only be saved through a solid industrial foundation. Take away industry from a race, take away political freedom from a race, and you have a slave race. And the strategy of a few people has always sought to remove the leaders of movements. Until the black man lays a foundation for his own freedom, he will never have it, and there is only one way that it can be laid, and it must be laid through sacrifice, through death, through suffering. You must first destroy the souls of black men before you can destroy Garvey. You are dealing with a serious man living in a serious time. Marcus Garvey does not give a snap for anything human but justice. And that which is based upon righteousness. The black man now wants his. The only protection against injustice in man is power. Physical power, financial power, educational power, scientific power, power! The compromise must come from the dominant races. We are warning them. All that you see in creation, all that you see in the world was created by God for the use of man. And you, 400 million black souls, have as much right to your possession in this world as any other race. Our desire to lay down our burden and rest our weary backs and feet by the banks of the Niger, and sing our songs and chant our hymns to the God of Ethiopia. Our blessed Lord and Savior, the lowly Nazarene, who has suffered and died on the mountain of Calvary to set humanity free after the crucifixion, after he was buried, that they would have silenced the principles. Yes, thus the great Redeemer came to save man from his fallen state, yet man, because of his wickedness, because of his murderous principles, rejected the teachings of the Christ.
The cry and desire for liberty is justifiable and made holy everywhere.
The only protection against injustice in man is power. Fast to the faith. Yet that in the practice of his doctrine today is instilled the propaganda that seeks to make the race that you and I represent an inferior unit of the great human family. Man cannot drive fear into the heart of man, because man is but the equal of man. Above them there is no other but God, and anything bears human form is but equal standard to. In the name of God and all that is holy, why should we want to be somebody else? Man is wicked, man is envious, man is rebellious, man is murderous, and you can expect very little of man. The world has gone mad. The world has become too material. The world has lost its spirit of kinship with God. It is an old one. For hundreds of years, the white propagandists have been printing millions of tons of literature to impress the minds of scattered Ethiopia. We are just asking them to seize their kindness for a while and hand over to us what is belonging to us. They are the paid agents of the ancient enemy to cut you off from the vision that you have husbanded. Let us not try to be the best or worst of others, but let us make the effort to be the best of ourselves. I am satisfied of having won a glorious victory over all my enemies, and that they found it beyond their own power and ability to defeat me. Hence the resort to and use to the sovereign power of government to destroy me. It took the power of the Roman state to destroy the physical person and influence of the Christ. It takes a man who suffers to understand freedom. It counts for naught when the nationality comes in conflict with the racial idealism of the group that it rules. When our interests clash with those of the ruling faction, then we find that we have absolutely no rights. May the Lord have mercy on their souls. I shall come and bring with me countless millions of black slaves who have died in America and the West Indies and the millions in Africa to aid you in the fight. One day you will find, marching down the avenue of time, 400 million black men and women ready to give up even the last drop of their blood for the redemption of their motherland, Africa. And here it is the command that is given because of our conditions, because of our environments. The command is given to go forward for the reclamation of Africa. Seek a method for saving Africa first. Awake! The day is upon you. Go forth in the name of the race and build yourself a nation. Redeem your country, Africa, the land from where you came, and prove men worthy of the recognition of others. Africa is ours. To win Africa, we will give up America. We will give up our claim in all parts of the world. But we must have Africa. We are not going to remain here and create any trouble longer than is necessary. Africa's sun is rising. We know that Africa can only be redeemed by the sacrifice of human blood, and we are prepared to give even the last drop. Glorious shall be the battle when the time comes to fight for our people. The best of a race does not live on the patronage or philanthropy of others, but it makes an effort to do for itself. It is natural that we must take on the spirit of age. We are not engaged in domestic politics, in church building, or in social uplift work. We are engaged in nation building. We rely on them for that kind of leadership that will make us free. You must protect yourselves. The time has come. It must be laid through sacrifice, through death, through suffering. Self-reliance, self-determination. We know that Africa can only be redeemed by the sacrifice of human blood, and we are prepared to give even the last drop. What will happen when we start to behave like men? We are stretching forth our hands with the desire to teach the world the true principles of mercy and justice. It takes a slave to appreciate liberty. History has been the inspiration of generations past, and what we record shall be the inspiration of black generations unborn. We cannot present to the world organized force will be naturally dragged under in the tidal wave of race oppression. Let us watch, work, and pray, for the civilization of injustice is bound to crumble and bring destruction down upon the heads to the unjust, because is colonial expansion for those who have waged the propaganda. Men do not build for others, they build for themselves. The old-time stories of African fever, African bad climate, African mosquitoes, African savages have been repeated. The race needs workers at this time, not plagiarists, copyists, or mere imitators, jealous ones, but men and women who are able to create, to originate, and to improve. Africa has become the big game of the nation hunters. Gentlemen, you may as well sharpen your swords. Africa shall tell the tale.
Prayer alone is not going to improve our condition, nor the policy of watchful waiting. We must strike out for ourselves in the course of material achievement, and by our own effort and energy present to the world those forces by which the progress of man is judged.
Truth, justice, love, mercy have taken their departure, and all that we have is the reign of selfishness and greed, which will ultimately be the wreck and ruin of our civilization. What does Marcus Garvey care about persecution by the enemies? If the enemy can only know that Marcus Garvey is but a John the Baptist in the wilderness. The enemy are not so much from without as from within. Our history of the traitors shall go down the ages, and shall be written in the black book of time, and even the angel of eternity shall lay it before the judgment seat of God. The evil of internal division is wrecking our existence. Marcus Garvey does not give a snap for anything human but justice, and that which is based upon righteousness. It was on the principle of injustice that Cain killed Abel. It was on the same principle of injustice that England exploited Africa, that France exploits Africa, that Italy exploited Africa, that Belgium exploited Africa, and the stronger nations of the world exploit the weak. The world today is indebted to us for the benefits of civilization. Jealous ones who, for the sake of position and privilege, will sell their own mothers. They are not concerned with Africa, and they have nothing to do with Africa. And some of them are as black as Africa. What does Marcus Garvey care about persecution by the enemies? The black in America will never get his constitutional rights. We have built her cities and laid the foundation of her imperialism with the mortar of our blood and bone. When our interests clash with those of the ruling faction, then we find that we have absolutely no rights. Africa is ours. To win Africa, we will give up America. We will give up our claim in all other parts of the world, but we must have Africa. Glorious shall be the battle when the time comes. May the Lord have mercy How can a man fight better than knowing that the cause for which he fights is righteous? I was once convicted because of wicked enemies, malicious and jealous members of my own race misrepresented me and those in authority for the purpose of discrediting and destroying me. They are the paid agents of the ancient enemy to cut you off from the vision that you have husband. And by God, the Moroccans made them hand it back. There is nothing to fire a people to action like injustice. When he raised the cost of living, when he raised the cost of bread, when he raised the cost of butter and eggs, and of meat, and other necessities of life, what did he mean? The prejudice against us as blacks is not because of our color, but because of our condition. We were then but chattel slaves of our masters. I was sent there by the evil forces that have always fought and opposed reform movement. Hand back to us that which you have robbed and exploited us of in the name of God and Christianity. After my enemies are satisfied in life or death, I shall come back to you to serve, even as I have served before. In life I shall be the same. In death I shall be a terror to the foes of the black liberty. If death has power, then count on me and death to be the real Marcus Garvey I would like to be. If I may come in an earthquake or a cyclone or plague or pestilence, or as God would have me, then be assured that I will never desert you and make your enemies triumph over you. By their actions, they indicate to us they are slaves and not with us in the struggle upwards. Let the sky and God be our limit and eternity our measurement. Education is not so much the school that one has passed through, but the use one makes of that which he has learned. God and nature must make us who we are, and then out of our own creative genius we make ourselves what we want to be. Follow always that great law. You, at this time, can only be destroyed by yourselves. Almighty Creator made us men not like any others, but in His own image. I cannot take blood out of a stone. I am willing to wait on time for my satisfaction and retribution of my enemies. If Garvey dies, Garvey lives. Africa is ours. To win Africa, we will give up America. We will give up our claim in all other parts of the world, but we must have Africa. Africa that caused the bloody war of 1914, and it is Africa that is going to cause another bloody war. We do not believe that the black man should be encouraged in the idea that his highest purpose in life is to marry a white woman. My effort was not correctly understood, and that is why some people have become prejudiced towards me. Yet we do believe that the white man should be taught to respect the black woman in the same way that he wants the black man to respect the white woman. I have left behind for our generations a record of injustice that will be our guide in the future rise of Ethiopia's glory. Hence, as a race, we feel that we too are entitled to the rights that are common to humanity. When Garvey dies, a million other Garveys will rise. My effort was not correctly understood, and that is why some people have become prejudiced towards me. Money and ability were freely given for the cause you now see. Hear all, but attend only that which concerns you. Remember the sorrows of our mothers. I believe in a final judgment. Oh, for the reputations that have been made and built upon the dead bones of the wrecked lives of innocence. Oh, for the reputations that have been made and built upon the dead bones and the wrecked lives of the innocent. Greeting. The whole human race is gone mad. Man has lost his reason.
And now we are in for an age of ruin and destruction